Welcome back to Blind Man Morris. We're by the car, not under it today. So today I'm going to attempt to pop the track rod end on the steering rack to replace the steering rack bellows, which is split. Quite common on a Morris, especially with the new steering rack rubbers, because they're crap. So what you need to do with this is jack your car up. I jack it under the driver's side chassis leg with a trolley jack and a nice piece of soft pine to protect the chassis leg from the jack. And I've also got the old Morris jack there and the tyre and everything under there, just in case, because I'm going to be doing a lot of wiggling and moving the stuff. So belt and braces, make sure you're safe. I've got the other side wheel chocked. I've also turned this wheel so it's pointing as far that way around as possible, so I can get access to everywhere I'm working underneath the wheel arch here, and then through to the other end of where the steering rack bellows attach, so I can get my hands in here. It's like working for a letterbox. So we're going to cut all that off, clean it all up, remove this track rod end and attach the new bellows. Well, that's the plan. But first, you've got to get this track rod end off. Now, we've already done a track rod end on the Traveller over there, and it was an absolute nightmare to pop the joint. So we have got this, which is your ball joint popper. And this takes all the stress and strain out of removing your steering rod, track rod end from this bar here without doing any damage to the nut with hammering, without knackering the thread, beating it with a hammer. If it was me doing it, I'll end up hitting the wing, hitting myself, hitting the wheels, hitting something. So I use a ball joint popper. Ball joint popper. That's what that is. So it's on. I've tapped it. Where am I? Off out there. See this end here? That's where you smack that under there until the forks around the top of the track rod end. Tighten it with your fingers until that piece is under the. So
You've
I've
still got the nut on.
I've left the nut on, so I'm protecting the bottom of the thread because those threads are quite soft, and I want to protect the spindle because obviously if you do a lot of pressure like that, you can burr the end over and you won't get the nut back.
But you've undone the nut a lot, have you? Already.
As long as it's just past flush, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and you also don't damage this dust cover here. There, when you do it this way, if you use a pickle fork, which is the other method, which basically looks like this top bar, that's what a pickle fork looks like without the rest of it. You belt it in there like that and then you smack it down like that and it pops everything up, but it always wrecks this dust cover on your track rod end. So again, we don't need to do that. So spend a bit of money.
Not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money. And it'll pop. It's popped. It didn't hear it. The other one made a lovely pop. Well, that was dull. Well, there you go. So that was anticlimactic because that popped a lot faster than it. Yeah, that's popped it. There you go. Undo the nut, pop it off. Let's have a look there. So that. Ugh, what's going on there? Well, I'll sort that out in a minute. That's the old circlets fell off there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's damaged. Just needs to be refitted. Okay, so on to the next job, which is removing the old steering rack bellows in there, cutting off the cable ties, cleaning everything down, removing the grease nipple, because obviously when I slide the new bellows over, that's got to be out of the way or it's going to rip the new bellows. So let's get that cleaned down and ready for the next part. So we've cut the old rubber off. Cleaned everything up. Now we use brake cleaner to clean all the surfaces, and as you can see, that this is the track rod there with the teeth on it. My hand's out of the way there. There's the teeth, and there's the ball joint there. And what I've done is I've lightly greased that with lithium grease, and I'm going to wipe the excess off because I don't want too much of it back, so I don't want it touching the gaiter. But I did want to grease that ball joint in there, look, because that's got to be. Oh, that's lovely now. Nice and clean and greased. So the next job is to remove, using my famous spanner, the grease nipple, because I don't want that. There you go, that's going in my pocket. That'll do with a clean. Now I'm going to clean everything, wipe everything down, and I'm going to get the steering rack bellows and That's the next tricky job, is putting the steering rack bellows on without tearing it. Here's the new steering rack bellows, and it's warm, nice and malleable. If it was cold, you want to soak that in hot water if you're doing it on a cold day. Make sure this is nice and stretchy. And I've used my old, I think it's a candle snuffer. I found in my workshop. It's nice and smooth, and I've put dielectric grease on the inside, or a silicon-based grease on the inside of this, and I've started to stretch that in the heat, and that makes that nice and pliable. So I'm going to slip it over the top. So what I'm going to do is it goes on that way, like that, over the top of there. It makes it look like I know what I'm doing. I don't actually. I'm just pretending. So good bloke to find that.
We'll get it on in a minute, but that's what you're trying to do in principle. That's what I'm trying to do in principle. See, I'll get to that point, make sure that's right on there, and I'm going to locate that back in there, and I'm going to put the nut back on. And that's going to hold that track rod still while there's me nut. I had that in my pocket. Just need to be loosely on the bottom there. Like that. I need a bit of play, but not too much. That's going to hold that still now. So I'm going to lubricate it using Demon tyres over the metal there, just along there. Because Demon tyres is a silicon based, I think it's silicon based, it's not petroleum based. So that's why you can use it on your tyres. And also it's soaking the inside of your steering rack bellows. So it's coating that with Demon tyres, which makes it last longer. And when I've finished, I'm going to cover it again like that with Demon tyres, get it all soaked up, and that should keep it, well, it should last at least a year, which seems... Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Right, so next job is to push that over the top, and then we'll fit it both ends. So what I did to get it over there, and we needed both of us here, is I go in with a screwdriver. You've got to be very careful you don't split the rubber, and you lever it up like this, up onto the top of the track rod, and then you roll it over like that. So you should never do, which is what I did the first time I did it, that. So you want to, let's do that again. You go in on there, following the line, you go up over the top until that just peeps over there, just past there, and then you just gently lever it over and it will pop straight across, which it did. Took me about 10 seconds. And that's on there now. And we're going to hand over it to my good lady wife, because at this point, the next job, I can't get my hands through the post box there to fit it on the inside there. So you need strong, thin hands. I've got paws and arthritis, so I can't do it now. So that's the bit I get to, and I'm going to hand over to Amber now, and she's going to do the rest of the work. Fitting the steering rack bellows. So this, next to popping the track rod end, is probably the most difficult bit. Once you've popped the steering rack bellows over the track rod end, is getting this big fat end over the steering rack itself. So what we do is, Amber goes through from the side where you're looking from now. I lean into the engine bay, and this is my hand here, and I hold the steering rack bellows on one end like this, either on the bottom or the top, and then Amber works her small hands in and then pops it round. Now, when you get it right, it goes on within 20 seconds, or you can be fighting with it for an hour. So if you do get tired, and your hands will get tired doing this, stop and have a break, go and have a cup of tea, and then come back to it. So the next job is to soak this in Demon tyres, give it a good coating to protect it, and then it's reassembly.
And the cable ties we've got.
Oh yes, don't forget the cable ties. You can use Jubilee clips if you're being fancy, but we always use cable ties.
So there's one big one on the end there, and one little one on the front there.
Yep. On to the next job. Okay, that's everything back on. That's a new, well, we found a new rubber. That's gone back on. Lock nuts back on. Grease nipples back on. And now I'm going to go in. I'm cleaning all the grease nipples, because while the wheel's off, what I'm going to do next is I'll take advantage of that. I'm going to do a brake inspection. I'm going to check the brake pipes, check this flexible brake hose, clean everything down, have a look at the wings, see if there needs any rust treatment anywhere, give everything a good inspection, adjust and clean the brakes, and then wipe down, clean down, and put the wheel back on, and we're done.